Hey, Lee Robinson here from American Sentinel Canine. Thank you for tuning in. The purpose of this video is to discuss line breeding. How to create a line of dogs. Sorry as I adjust my camera here. We've had a lot of people ask me, how do you create a line of dogs? Maybe they have an older dog or a middle-aged dog that they really have a lot of respect for, and they like the attributes of that dog, and they want to build a line off of that dog. So that's what we're going to discuss in this video. If you look at our program, our American Sentinel Canine program, it's built around line breeding on a dog named Preacher Man and a few of his siblings, Bandit, Gator, and excuse me, I'm not going to edit this video, so excuse me. We have bred Preacher Man to several different females, and then we've taken the offspring of those females back to Preacher Man or to offspring of his siblings, and then over time we've maintained a high percentage of Preacher blood in our program. But even though that's what we did, you know, Preacher Man was born like 17 years ago, and yeah, probably close to 17 years ago, and we've been working on his line for about 13 to 15 years, because we started breeding him before he was 2 years old, but at that time it was just an outcross type of deal, and so it wasn't really line breeding until more years went by and we started concentrating those genes. And so some people have asked me, hey Lee, I've got this great dog and I want to build a line off of him, but I'm kind of stuck and I don't really know what to do. You know, how do I build a line off of this dog? And so that's what we're going to discuss. Now, right off the bat, I'll give you, I'm not just a person that talks. You can look at, excuse me. You can look at not only what I say, you can also look at what I do, and then you can also look at the results of it. If you want to look at what I say and what I do with Preacher, and then the results of Preacher, look at our American Sentinel program. If you want to look at what I say with Frankie Bomp, which is a dog that I've been working on creating a line from him as well, then you'll notice a little bit about what I'm doing with Frankie Bomp. Now, the reason why the Preacher Man and the Frankie Bomp line or method works for males better than females is because it requires you to put a lot of pups on the ground. And it's easier to get a lot of pups out of a male than it is a female, because a female can only have a litter, you know, maybe once, at most twice a year. But a male, we bred Frankie Bomp 4 times within 2 months. That's a lot of breedings, okay? Now, the purpose of breeding him to 4 females in 2 months was so I could do what I'm about to show you. I need to make my litters bigger. So here's Frankie Bomp. Now, we bred Frankie to a bitch named Suki, and that's going to develop a pit bull line that we'll kind of keep on the side. And since we're going to keep that one kind of on the side, I'm not going to worry so much about what we did with Suki. So I'm going to erase that one off the board, even though that was one of 4 breedings that we did with Frankie. We're going to focus on the other 3. We bred him to a bitch named Rogue. I'll call that A. We bred him to a bitch named Pele. We'll call that B. And we bred him to a bitch named Onyx, and we'll call that C. So the offspring out of these 3 dogs, A, B, and C, they're all half Frankie. Okay, they're all 50%. The offspring are all 50% Frankie. Now, what I'll do with that is I'm going to look at these dogs, and I'm going to try to keep some really good males and females. But I'm really looking for females preferably. But I'm not going to be closed-minded. If I get a good male, I'm going to keep it. All right. So since we have 3 breedings, I'm going to basically keep 2 or 3 pups from each of these litters. Now, in each of these litters, I'm going to look for basically like 2 females and 1 male. And then eventually, over time, when we select, so we're going to have some time that passes here. We're going to have a year or 2 that goes by. So I can work these offspring for a year or 2 and find out which ones are the best. When I find out which ones are I'm going to just write time. This is time to test. This is time for me to performance test my offspring. When I find the best ones that I want to use, hopefully I'll end up with 2 females and maybe 1 male. All right? And If I end up with 3 females, that's fine too. Let's say I get a female out of all these, that's fine too. What I will do with those is I will take Frankie back to the females to make another breeding that's focusing in on Frankie. And that will make an offspring that's 75% Frankie. This is what I would do actually if I was dealing with a purebred dog. I'm dealing with my band dogs. If I do that, it's going to cost me too much size. So I probably won't do that, but this is how I would do a line breeding if you were dealing with a purebred dog. Okay? Now you can take these dogs, let's call it IA, well, IAF. Now let's call it IF, and then we'll put A behind it. IF, we'll put B behind it, and then I, C, F, and C behind it. What this is inbred on Frankie with bitch A, inbred on Frankie with bitch B, inbred on Frankie with bitch C. You can take these dogs here back together again, and you're going to still keep that 75%. You're going to have a 75% Frankie, but then you're going to outcross on your B and C. And because you have an outcross, you still have enough hybrid vigor to maintain this high degree of Frankie. You can take this line and cross them together and get 75% inbred on Frankie, but an outcross of A and B. Because of this outcross of A and B, you're still going to have enough hybrid vigor to maintain that breeding successfully. You could also do the same thing with A and C, maintaining 75%, and then the outcross being A and C. And this will allow you to maintain that high percentage of the dog that you want to inbreed on while still having healthy gene pools, assuming that you're not breeding in any known genetic defects. Now that's how I did it with Preacher Man, because Preacher Man was one of our band dogs. Frankie, I am going to do a little different, because if I inbreed too much on Frankie, I'm going to lose too much size for my band dog program. So let me back up and show you my plan for Frankie. Up to this point, it's going to be like what I just said. Well, let me get rid of these two lines. I'm going to have my time to test on my my Frankie A and my Frankie B and my Frankie C. But I won't take Frankie back to these daughters for me, because if I did that, these are all going to be my band dogs. See, Frankie A is a band dog, Frankie B is a band dog, Frankie C is a band dog. And some of these band dogs already have more than 50%. Actually, some of these band dogs already have 50% or close to it. Some of them a little less, some of them a little more percentage of pit bull in them already. So if I did that breeding again, we're going to end up with dogs that are too small. So I won't go back to Frankie a second time on this, but what I will do is I will take these band dog bitches that were bred to Frankie, and I'll have 3 different Frankie lines of band dogs. Well, now I can breed them back together, and I'm doubling up on Frankie. So we have Frankie in there twice, and then we have AB. So now it's not 75% Frankie, it's 50% Frankie. You can see out of the 4 dogs that were used, Frankie was in there twice. This is called doubling up. Okay, so it's double bred Frankie, but then with my out of AB. Here we're going to breed them together, and we're doubling up on Frankie again, and then our outcross is C and B, or BC I should say. Same thing. And then we could also breed these 2 together, doubling up on Frankie, with the outcross being AC. By the time I do that, I've now basically line bred on Frankie. And by line breeding on Frankie, I'm going to capture a lot of the traits about him. Why did I choose him? Because he's a super solid proven game dog that comes from super solid proven game dogs, from a family of dogs that has been performance tested for generations. And he represents what I like. So what did I want to change about him? I wanted to increase the size. So when I selected my bitches A, B, and C, I selected really good bitches that all had what he did not, and that's size. But then I'm going to double up on him because I don't want to lose that gameness. I want to keep that gameness in there, so I'm doubling up on the gameness, okay? So that's basics of line breeding. Now, after I get my, also let's do the Frankie, let's put this one, let's say I breed these 2 together, and I get doubled up on Frankie AC. Now I can do that again if I want to the next generation. I can take these dogs back together, or these dogs back together, or these dogs back together. And I'm still maintaining that Frankie in there now at a high ratio. And this is what line breeding is. Remember, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So the way I've done this is I'm maintaining as much of a direct relationship between the offspring and the original dog. I'm trying to go as direct as possible. That's line breeding, okay? Now, and we're concentrating on the traits that were found in Frankie. That's the goal. That's what line breeding is about, okay? Now, a lot of people talk about, you know, siblings and parents is inbreeding, and that's true, it is. And then they say cousins and uncles and aunts and grandchildren is line breeding. Maybe, maybe not. It kind of depends on how it's done, okay? But anyway, all the technicalities really don't need to be worried about. What you need to focus on is the methodology. And I've outlined a methodology that you take this dog to dog A, to dog B, and to dog C. Then you take the offspring of them back together after you performance test and find the ones that work. Or if not back together, like you can take them back together, or you can take them back to their daddy. Okay? So there you go. That's how you focus on it. Now in the meantime, don't forget the most important step. Performance testing is the most important step. If you're not performance testing these individuals, if you're not performance testing these individuals, then you don't know if you're maintaining the traits that you're seeking. Okay, so you have to performance test, because if you get an individual that's, you're like, oh, the pedigree is great, I'm just going to use this dog. Maybe, maybe not. What if that dog is the cull in the litter? Cull means the dog that shouldn't be removed because it inherited some genes that you didn't like. See, every single dog out there has some genes that are not perfect. And if you focus on the wrong individuals, you can very quickly ruin your work. So you have to performance test to make sure you're not only breeding on a pedigree, but you're also breeding on traits, the traits that are expressed. You want to use the traits that are expressing, or the dogs that are expressing the traits that you like, because that increases what's called the allelic frequency in the gene pool for the desired traits. And that's what's going to put you on a successful platform in 5 or 10 years. So anyway, sorry if I rambled a little bit. Hopefully this answers the questions on how to create a line, and y'all have a blessed day.